Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode on the challenges and trials for online teaching during COVID-19. That is the first half of the academic year, i.e., when we started in March. So I'm looking at when we actually first came online from March to July. Because I've been doing it every day, I'm still having educators coming on board who've worked during March until July. And the next set of episodes would start from October, which means I'll be revisiting people who've actually now started going the first semester of the new academic year. So from 2020 to 2021, that's the new academic year. So I'll be going into the classroom in September. So after October, I'll be looking at how we actually going back into the classroom and what some of the challenges are. But I'm still looking at when we first went online during the first wave of the pandemic. Right, so the platform is called the Female Educators Roundtable, with your host, Debby Enoe. I am a coach and an educator, and another one of my guests, educator from around the world. It's interesting because people are beginning to, the more and more read information about educators are still having a very negative press. And as an educator myself, I find it very, very frustrating, to say the least, because in most people's lives, 95% of individuals out there have had an educator in their life. Whether or not it was positive or negative, they still had the input of an educator. And it is quite annoying when educators are not acknowledged and they're not respected. Not that we want respect, but the fact that our profession should be respected, because all other professions out there are respected, and all other professions out there, the society, the media, the community, the politician, they do not disrespect them, nor do they undermine them. So it's really interesting to see that all these people I've just named are constantly undermining educators, and they're failing to remember that in their life, they had the input of an educator. And in every profession, as I kept saying, there have been the input of educators, yet still, our profession is undermined, our capability is undermined, our professional judgment is undermined. The question we need to ask is, why is that so? When we are the bedrock of all other professions. It's irritating because we've all spent even sometimes more years or the same amount of years gaining our qualification like every other profession. And yet still, we are not acknowledged and we're disrespected. And everybody else, they're undermining us. Why is that? Remember, we are not superheroes, because when you all are comparing us with superheroes, you feel that you have the right to see us as non-human. Because seeing that we are superhero is like expectation that we should be acting and thinking as superheroes. We know we're human beings like everyone else. The only difference, we are educators, and in everyone else's life, they had the input of educators. I am on a mission and on a passion to put the story right, because I feel that people out there need to realize and remember the value of educators. And we are constantly being disrespected. And the thing that everybody seems to be hammering on us is, oh, we have long holidays. The job is easy, etc., etc., etc. One, the job is not easy, as you guys should be realizing now with all the different educators I've been having on the platform. B, we don't have a lot of holidays. Even though we have 6 weeks holidays for the summer, within that 6 weeks, we still have to be preparing lessons. We still have to be finding resources. And even when everybody else is sleeping, we are preparing lessons, we are marking, we are writing reports, and the list goes on. So you guys need to start realizing what educators do and stop making assumption that we don't work hard. Educators are getting sick and tired of all of that. And you all need to stop disrespecting the profession, because in everyone's life, they've had educators. And our job is as important as everyone else's. Anyway, I am not moaning. I just feel that when I come on, I need to put the record straight, because for young educators coming on board, we are scaring them away. Because when you guys are actually always bashing us, you don't expect them to stay in the profession. Because if you all are thinking so little of us and what we do, why should anyone come in and do this job? You guys need to realize that you need us as much as we need you. Anyway, I'm not mourning, I'm just putting the record straight, because I think it's about time people start realizing the value of educators. As I was saying before I actually went into that rant, not rant, I need to rephrase that, before I actually went into my explanation. Welcome, my educator from around the world. Thank you for coming on. And I really do appreciate you taking the time off to come on to explain to the masses what it was like teaching online. Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us the country you come from and tell us the subject you teach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. My name is Debby Enoe, and I'm from Kenya. I teach students from ages 10 years up to 15. That is from grade 4 to grade 8,
Right.
as per our Kenyan system.
Okay, thank you.
I teach very many subjects. I teach languages, I teach CRE, home science, creative art, social studies, and life skills.
It's interesting. As an educator, sometimes we have to teach a range of subjects. Even some of the subjects we have not even trained to do, we have to train ourselves to teach it. That's the flexibility and the diversity of educators. Okay, how long you've been teaching?
I've taught for around 25 years.
Oh. Whoa, the veterans, right? Welcome to my world. Thank you for coming on board.
Thank you.
Okay, as I was just now I was explaining to the masses that the role we do, how important it is, and how very challenging it can be. As much as we love it, it is also very challenging. And one of the most challenging experience all educators had was doing the online platform. Because as you know, and as most people would know, if they choose to know, that we have not been taught how to teach on the online platform. Because most or all of our teaching was done for the physical classroom. And as we were in, or still are in this pandemic, in order to educate children, we had to learn the online platform. Some of us had the support of our local authority, our education body, etc. Some of us had no support because the education body we worked with didn't have an idea or didn't even have a clue of what to do. So they were just as blind as we were. So some of us had to go online and trial and error, or even look at YouTube. My educator and my tutorial was YouTube, because I had no other option. So for you, what was it like teaching online?
Thank you, Debbie. It was not very easy because, for one, I was not very conversant with the online teaching, and the platform that I engaged was Zoom. And My population in a physical class is very large. I have a population of about 60 students in a class. And
Pause that a
for me
little
to
while.
do,
Are you saying you had 60? You are one teacher for 60 students at one time?
yes, 60 in a class.
Wow. Okay.
So as
Okay. Wow.
it's very challenging, but that is it. I teach in a public school, and therefore during Zoom classes, you can't have everybody on board. So I felt like very many of my students were left out. I only had a handful, and the handful that I had, I felt like I didn't give them the much content because you have to be very minimal with the Zoom teaching. You can't give so much as you would give in a normal physical class.
Mm,
Then besides that, I also felt like I was not giving in as much as I would because a huge number of my students were out. Then
mm,
apart from that, having been a new platform, what to give was a challenge. Apart from that, sometimes I had hiccups of lights going off, electricity power, not availability of power supply. And probably the students are waiting, but from my end, I do not have power, or vice versa. I am ready, but the students cannot be able to join because of the power supply. Then, besides that, I also had a challenge of some parents telling me that they would wish to join, but the problem is they do not have gadgets. The gadgets that are available are for their parents, and these very parents go to work with their phones. So here you are willing to teach, but the child cannot be able to access because they do not have the gadgets that they can be able to use to access the teaching. Then besides that, there is also the challenge of the internet. Sometimes very slow, sometimes it is very difficult for them to join. Then the other bit is of students joining in at different times. One has already joined, you're waiting for the others, and you see with time you cannot be able to wait for the rest. So you find that as you engage them in learning, there are some that are also losing out. So that was those are some of the challenges that I really face. The challenges are very many, they are very diverse. Yes. So
Your
it is
volume
not
is
very
quite
easy.
low, Judy. Can you put your volume up, please? Your volume is quite low.
Can you get me now?
Yes, that's better. Yes.
Yeah, so I was saying that I had very many challenges mentioning the internet connection, either from my end or from the end of the students, then not engaging all of my learners, just a handful. You find that sometimes, because it is a new platform, something new, sometimes you're teaching and there's a lot of noise from the background because they're also not so sure how to use the gadgets when doing the meetings. Sometimes I could get distractions, family members wanting to pop and look what is happening. So these are some of the factors that I had when I was engaging during the teaching.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you said thank you. You said you had 60 on the physical classroom. So how many did you have on Zoom at any one time? Because bearing in mind, one of your challenge was some of them didn't have the gadgets.
I only had 5.
Five. So you had a nice class.
Yes, a nice one. But on the other hand, I also felt so much for the ones that were not able to join.
Yeah.
I felt so much for them.
So the others that were not able to join, was it purely the lack of the devices or the internet connection or the fact that the electricity, or was it some of it that just didn't want to join? What were some of the reasons they gave for not joining?
It was not a matter of choice because many really wanted to join. Where I teach, the location of my school is in the slum. So most of the parents there are poor. So they cannot be able to afford the gadgets. Then the power supply is also a problem. Access of the internet is also very, very impossible. So those who are able to join only joined because their parents could afford to get data bundles. Sometimes the bundles could even get finished before even the lesson ended.
Right.
So that's
Right. You had a lot of challenge because the fact that in the physical classroom you had 60 and the online platform you had 5, and you're saying to us not because they had the devices, but because they did not have the device. So you said about 55 of your students didn't have the device. The fact that so many of them could not afford the mobile phone device.
sure.
Right, right. So what happened to the students who've missed this teaching? What have you guys put in place for them?
It is a bit, actually, it is, that is why I said that it was so much of a challenge for me. I felt for the 55 that never attended, and even for the 5 that attended, at some point, they didn't manage for us to go through. So I had to stop because I felt like I was not giving what should be given, because I'm only teaching a class that is not even a third of what is my population. So I felt I'd rather stop so that as we open, I begin on the same level.
Mm,
So I didn't really have anything that I could use to assist them. The best that I did was to get some notes and some assignments. Then I sent to their parents and asked them if they could maybe visit a cyber cafe and probably print the literature and share if they can.
mhm,
It would be of help to them.
mhm,
That is what I did. So
mhm,
I
mhm,
only sent assignments and the notes that I could to the parents for them to
mhm.
print. So I'm not very sure whether they were able to do so. Only a few reported back to me that were able. So I assumed that the ones that never reached out to me to give me a feedback probably were not able to do so.
Mhm, mhm,
Yes.
mhm, mhm. So does that mean when you go back in, when are you going back, or have you gone back already?
We haven't gone back yet. We are still not very sure because, okay, we were told that probably in January, that is when we would go back. But the Minister for Education hasn't given a clear, definite time of when schools are going to have to open in Kenya. So
Okay,
it's
okay.
uncertain.
So yeah, sorry.
So we are still not certain yet.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So in the meantime, what are educators doing in relationship to the children that have missed and that will be missing education up until January? So what have you guys put in place?
What we are going to do, we are only going to begin from where we stopped from, because when we stopped learning in March,
Okay.
the ministry engaged learners in other platforms that never worked also, because a good number of the students were not able to access due to the problems that I have mentioned. So we are assuming that where we stopped in March, when the schools open, that is where we shall pick up from. So whatever we are
Mhm,
doing now, we are only doing for the purpose of engaging the learners so that they do not get distractors. As we have had very many cases here in Kenya whereby students have either engaged in behaviors that have caused them a lot of problems, either crime. Girls have also found themselves getting pregnant because of that. So to engage them and make them busy, that is why we have been giving them notes and also engaging them on online platform. But in actual sense, we are assuming that all of them are at home and they are not learning. So we shall begin from where we stopped.
And what do you think in terms of how do you feel about that?
Well, personally, I feel it is a sorry state, especially on the side of the child, because these are children who are already prepared that next year they were to go to a different class. And those who were meant to do exams this year knew that if they passed, probably next year they were either to go to university or go to college. So on the side of the students, I'm very sure that they are very devastated. They are very much disturbed. But all in all, we just have to accept because of the situation. There was no need of us going back to the classroom so as not to miss out on the grades, but to protect the children plus the teachers from getting the disease. So from our end as teachers, we are not very comfortable, but we had to do it because both of us have to be prevented over the COVID issue from our end because we also have families and we also have to take care of our health. Same case also applies to the students.
Thank you. Can you still hear me because the internet is
Yes, I
messing up?
can.
Okay, thank you. The other thing about it is, so the 5 students you actually had online, how much did you teach them? What did you teach them? Or what was engagement like as well?
Well, only did the language. I only picked a few areas. Actually, what I did, I asked them from their end what they had not gotten so clear. We were doing majorly revision from what they did not get very well in term one's work, in first term's work. Then I also gave them a little bit of some content of the class or the grade in which they are in. But I did not give so much because there are only few, so that when we go back, come next year, they don't feel bored when I repeat the same content when engaging the other learners. So I only did minimal.
Okay, okay, okay. Did you have any behavior issue on the platform?
Yes, I did. A lot of that one can't miss. Uh, a lot of noise from the background, and I would also spot some like it appears like they were doing other things. They could forget that I am not seeing them because we are not physically in class and engaged in other activities. So when I noticed that, I called them by name, and that is when they realized, oh, we are in a class, and they came back.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So in terms of engagement, do you think that they were engaged in the sessions? What was that like?
Yes, they were engaged in the session because there was that interaction because there were very few. You call a student by name and ask them. You would now notice when somebody is alert or not alert. So there was a total engagement from the side of the learner, which was very positive.
Yeah. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Do you find as a small group, a group of 5, were you able to form a community with that small group?
Yes, we were, because we would have a meeting and I ask them what they feel. They give a feedback from my end and also from amongst them. So I felt like that was a community. And besides that, we had now a group whereby they would hold their own discussions. And if there was anything that they required that required my attention, they would bring it to notice.
Okay, 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 okay. With a small group, how easy did you think, or how difficult did you think in terms of to engage them and to form a community?
In a small group, I felt like it is very easy to form a community than having a very large group. Though the number was very minimal, but going beyond 5, let's say maybe 10, 15 is not very bad. So a smaller number is manageable than having a very large group. Because when you have a very large group, you would have a lot of misbehavior problems, which will sometimes would be very difficult to arrest.
Yeah, because could you imagine if everything was worked out okay and you have 60 children on the online platform? Oh my goodness.
That is very unmanageable.
Exactly, exactly. So how do you manage in a physical classroom with 60 children? Do you teach them all at once?
Yes, we teach all at once. We teach them all at once because you see, we are working within time because my class takes about 35 minutes. So once I am done with my subject, I check out for another teacher to come in. So whether you like it or not, you have to manage the 60. And in my institution, by the way, there are some classes that even go beyond that 60 number, up to 100 in a class. And you
One
have to manage
teacher.
with one teacher. One teacher is. So it is not very easy because when you give assignments, sometimes the 35 minutes are over and you've not been able to go around the class and check all the pupils' books. So if you decide to collect the books and take them to the staff room, you will always have a huge heap of books that will never be marked completely because you have very many other engagements. Also, you have also other classes. Besides teaching that one class, I also have other classes to teach because I have different subjects and I'm also teaching different grades. So the workload is very huge.
Wow. What time you start? What time you normally start in a physical classroom? What time you start your lesson and what time you finish?
We start our lessons at 8:20 in the morning and we finish at 3:10 in the afternoon. 10 minutes past
Okay,
3 o'clock in the afternoon.
okay, okay, okay.
But in between, we have breaks.
Okay. So what time did you start on the online platform? What time did you start your lesson and what time did you finish and how long was the lessons?
My lessons were about 1 hour only, at most
Oh,
1 hour, between 9 and 10. I could
okay.
do only one in a day, one or two in a day. Yes, one
Right.
or two in a day.
Why was that?
Uh, that was because of the bit of the internet,
Mm,
considering my students,
mm.
because many that joined because their parents could only afford data bundles. And you see, data
Okay.
bundles are also very expensive, yes. So that is why I had to squeeze in, yeah, to accommodate them.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. So it means that when you're actually teaching them, you were very conscious of the fact that, some of them might just have a bundle of internet and you need it for possibly the next day.
Yes, yes, I was because most of the children where I teach, we actually provide them with breakfast and meals, lunch. And the reason why we do that is because we realized that some of them came to school without having taken breakfast. Some of them miss even supper. So when they come to school, they come to school when they are hungry. So the institution decided for us to be able to sustain them in school, they provide lunch. And the parents chip in something very small. because we have people that also support us in providing us with food. So that makes it very possible for us now to sustain them in school. And it is from that platform that I knew that even if I engage very many of them to have to be present for the online teaching in the online platform, they wouldn't afford. They wouldn't afford because of that. Plus other issues also. Some of them cannot even afford uniform and other basics like materials, learning materials. So those are some of the reasons that made me know that even if I engage all of them, they wouldn't be able to join because of that.
So what happened now that the school is not open? So how are they in terms of how are they eating? What's happening with them in terms of, eating wise?
We have been engaging whereby we give donations, whatever we can be able to afford, put them in a pool, then they are supplied with from the institution.
Okay.
Those who cannot be able to afford totally, yes. So they are supplied from the school.
Okay.
Maybe a packet of rice, beans, and maybe a flour to prepare uji or something like that with some cooking oil.
Okay. So even during the COVID period, you guys were still supplying the family who could not afford?
Yes, and the program is still on. We have actually been engaging people who can be able to donate whatever they can so that we can continue assisting them. So it is still running. It is still running.
Wow. So the interesting thing about it is the last thing on parents' mind is to engage in education, because they also have to think in terms of how can I survive with my family in terms of feeding them.
Yes. Pardon? I didn't
I
get
was
you.
saying the last thing on parents' mind is education, because I'm saying the last thing on parents' mind is education, because they need to be more concerned about feeding the children and themselves than actually trying to engage in education, because that is not a priority.
Yeah, sure.
Wow. With the 5 students you were engaged with, what it was like in terms of teacher and student relationship? What was the relationship like?
The relationship was very good, and they really enjoyed. And even the parents were very appreciative. And this is because the parents felt like I was there for them and engaged their children. So they were very appreciative. The children were also very positive and they're also very disciplined. Yes. And especially the ones that were able to join because their parents can afford. The discipline sometimes also goes with I don't know which word I may use. I don't want to use the word class, because if I use the word class, I would compare like the rich and the very poor ones. You find that when somebody is lingering in poverty, they tend to be very harsh. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's because of bitterness. They feel like the people who are surrounding them are also part of the poverty. That is why they normally behave in that way. But the ones that come from middle-aged family financially don't give much of a problem.
Mhm. You know, that could be seen from 2 points. The fact that those that came from in real poverty, you know, education is not a priority. So therefore, it is frustrating for them to be, for someone to be trying to engage in education when when they're hungry and they need to be fed. Whereas another group who are already able to eat, for them, that's not a problem because that is not a concern of theirs. So in terms of their mindset, it's very, very different because their stomach is filled. That could also be some of the factors in terms of engaging them, in terms of, you know, them actually being receptive to learning. Because as you know, once a child is hungry, it doesn't matter how much you're trying to engage them, there is no engagement taking place because their stomach is rumbling, and what the focus is on is the fact is they're hungry. Whereas with someone who is already fed, they haven't got that as a challenge.
True.
You know, so that could also be some of the factors.
Yeah, you are very right, and we've seen it from our end because the schools that do not provide meals have a very low population within the area where I teach. But the institutions
Okay.
that provide meals have a very high population. Like you wouldn't believe that the population of my school is about 2,400. The entire school, that is from grade 1 up to grade 8.
Mm,
And we have a neighboring school whose population is about 4,000 because they provide meals.
mm,
But the surrounding institutions where they do not provide meals, you find population being either 300, at most 600 pupils
mm,
from grade 1 up to grade 8.
mm,
So it is very true, as you say, that to some parents, that food is a major factor.
mm,
Education is not a priority.
mm, mm,
For them, the priority is where a child can be able maybe to be kept busy and be fed. So it's
mm,
like a teacher has been given the work of being a caretaker. You take care of the child in terms of either parenting, in terms of giving food, and also life skills. And to them, education does not matter so much. And this is the reason why even some of them do not even make follow-ups on how their children perform in school. You engage them, invite them to come to school so that you may have a talk on one-on-one about the performance of the children, but they are never available. They will always give an excuse that they had gone to maybe fend for the family, or they are busy, they have gone to work and such.
It's interesting though. Another reason why, you know, as you were saying in terms of, you know, the schools that have the highest population because they're able to feed their children. Whereas why would a parents go to a school that they know there is no food being given and the child is going to be starving? So there's no point in them going to that school. You know, it is sad that, you know, one school would be overpopulated because the parents are looking for food in order to feed the children, and that is a priority. You know, it's quite a sad situation listening to that, because we kind of take it for granted that, you know, the situation is not that bad. But when you're saying that, you know, in the schools you're teaching, the school you're teaching is a public school, and the numbers are so high because the parents are seeing, okay, which school have the food to feed my child, so therefore I'm going to take my child to that school. So it's a survival of the fittest kind of setup, isn't it?
Yeah, true. That's very true.
Wow. Wow. So, in terms of the parents who engage with you, with the five of them, did you have a parents teacher relationship? What was it like? In terms of if the child did not do the work, were you able to call the parents, or the parents was online anyway? What was the situation?
The good bit is that the parents that I engaged with, Parents who are very supportive. I didn't have any problem of a student having not completed the assignment on time. So that was a plus from my end. Yeah, because the parents were very supportive. I'm very sure that whenever assignments were given, they were there with the children to check what has been done and whether the assignments have also been done. And they also communicated to me that in case of any indiscipline, I notify them so that we work together. So they were very supportive.
Okay, okay. So in that case, you had a you had a teacher-parents partnership, which is always good. So the children who that were not engaging, right? The fact that they were still, because the school was still supplying the food, right?
Yes.
Wasn't it a situation where, the fact that they're picking up the food, did you guys actually have physical work for them to do? Like give them the package of the assignment or the package of the work they had missed?
Well, that was not very possible because you see, it was a government directive that we should not, teachers should not go to school. So we had other staff giving the donation, not us being there physically. So it was not easy as they pick the items. They also given assignments. Then besides that, not everyone that is a student in the institution was given the package. Only those who are very, 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 very needy.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So those that did not engage, they obviously didn't have the device or they did not have internet, So also they probably did not need food. So therefore, there was nothing you could have done, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. It was out of my, there was nothing I would do.
So what did the government do in relationship to that? What has the education minister or the education body? I'm not too sure what education you guys, like who's in charge, etc. So what did they do in relationship to the children are not being engaged? What did they say to parents?
Well, what was said to parents was to engage take up the responsibility of engaging the learners. That is what the minister said, because he also reckoned that very many parents assumed their role and transferred their role to the teacher. The teacher is a parent, the teacher is an educator, the teacher is a counselor, the teacher is a doctor, and you're everything. And this is the reason why we had a lot of very many girls getting pregnant, because parents were not taking up their responsibility. So they were told by the Minister for Education to take up their roles as parents, and they are the first educators, to see what they can be able to do in order to engage their pupils, their students.
Do you think many parents had actually done that?
I don't think so. Not many parents. And that one was very evident because you could see very many children out, either playing, not engaged, or just lazing around, or just walking about without doing anything. So that was an indication that parents never engaged their children. It was only evident that when the virus was almost at the peak, when it was very high, and there was a directive that people should not be outside. That is when the children were in. But as the curve started slowing down, very many children are just being seen outside playing from morning until evening. They only disappear during lunch hour, and you also see very many youth on the streets, at the shopping centers, just walking as if they are not engaged. So I don't think parents have taken up their responsibility very well. Very few of them have done so. Parents who are very much concerned with the education of their students are the ones who have made sure that they have engaged their children.
It's interesting. It just seems to be that it doesn't even matter whether or not they had this responsibility, they just did not take on the responsibility of a parent because they're so used. Do you think the reason why is because they're so used to giving away their responsibility to the educators
Yes.
that they didn't know what to do?
In my opinion, I feel that they assumed too much, that the teacher is everything. And now that they are at home with the children, they do not know what to do with them. They do not know what to do with them. So this is the reason why I felt like they never engaged them. Because even if, for those who could not be able to afford Wi-Fi, they don't know how to be able to check maybe the progress or the work of the student, what to engage them with, what to tell them. And again, you see, as parents, most of the parents are not very free with their children to engage them and even give them life skills or even tell them about life issues. They feel like there are certain things that should not come from them, but should come from somebody else. Matters to do with the relationship, uh, it's not very easy to find a parent engaging their children on such topics. They feel it is something that maybe the teacher or somebody else should handle. Whereas from my end, I feel that the parents should create a good rapport with their children so that the children can also have the confidence to engage them and even share with them whatever that they are going through, rather than leaving it to a stranger.
It also just demonstrates the roles that they put on educators and the challenges they expect educators to perform. You know, it's just really amazing that they feel that that is the role of educators. That should not be the roles. It's interesting. It's interesting in that. So, how do you feel the fact that you wanted to able to engage your students, you know, the amount of students you normally have online, you did not have them online, you know, the fact that some parents, in terms of finding food was more important, which is naturally, because according to Maslow, the basic needs have to be met. And one of the basic needs is that of food, clothes, and shelter. So if that basic need is not met, there's no way they could actually move on to move up the pyramid, which is then the intellectual needs. So that is very clear. So how does that make you feel in terms of, you know, where you're going to go from when you get back into the school?
Well, I feel, in my own view, that we are going to have a very heavy workload, in the sense that as we go back, apart from just teaching these children who have been away, they have forgotten many of the things that they were taught. I'm sure very many of them have already forgotten what they learned in term one. So it will be like going back again to restart whatever you had engaged them in. Then besides that, because of this COVID thing, very many of them would actually need to be cancelled, because there are those who have already lost maybe their parents. Actually, from my institution, there are children who lost their parents, and engaging such learners in just learning would not be so much of a help, because they would need counseling first, because they have gone through grief, and coming out of grief is not very easy. So as a teacher, I feel that we are going to have so much work to be done playing the role of being a counselor to bring the child's mind back into engaging in learning, and apart from that, also doing the bit of learning. From our end, also being parents, we are also uh, we have also gone through a period of stress. Yeah, somebody who does not understand would say that being an educator, we were very free and we were very happy because we were just idle. But it is not a matter of being idle. We were also very much disturbed because we are also parents, and being an educator, you also feel it. You had planned yourself, but whatever plan that you had did not go as you had planned. So it's going to be so much of a challenge. Yes.
It's it's interesting though, because one of the things that crossed my mind, I've got a show on Sundays which will be looking at some of the what you've just looked at, the challenges of having to teach the students who've gone through loss, grief, bereavement, and isolation. Because before we actually teach them, those are the things we need to unpack it. So it's really, as educators, we have a real big task ahead of us when we get back. It doesn't even matter when we get back. Whenever we get back, we still have this big challenge to deal with. And how are some educators going to deal with it? Because one of the things is educators are not trained. Many times we have to train ourselves in order to do the job we are doing, because we've been trained in specific area and we find ourselves doing other areas that we haven't been trained. One of the most typical areas is that of being a counselor and a therapist. Because when children come to us with all these baggages, as you identify, we have to deal with it, because as you said, some of the children in your classroom have experienced loss and bereavement, and also rejection and isolation. So we need the tools to deal with that, and we don't often have the tools to deal with it. So it's quite a task. And it's nice that you pointed out, people think that educators are happy that they're not doing anything because they're at home. But the task ahead of us is massive. It's just incredible. It's just really I've got no answer, none whatsoever. The other thing about it is, in terms of the online platform, how did you think that the students, how did you feel that they cope being on the online platform? Bearing in mind it was 5 of them and they had a class of 60, so they've missed 55 of their peers. How did you think, what do you think was happening with them? What did they discuss with you in terms of just the 5 of them, and the 55 are not there and they probably have no contact with them? What do you think was happening to them? Did they share it?
Well, they did, because in my class, I try to engage them to be each other's keeper. And they were also very concerned that their friends were not able to join the classes. So they felt for them. Yes, they were there because their parents could afford to give them the gadget and they could afford the bundles. But on the other hand, they also felt like their colleagues or their classmates missed out. They were very sorry about that. They were very sorry about that, and some said that they would share whatever materials that they had together with their friends, which was okay. So I would notice that they felt for them, but there was nothing they could do. Yes,
It's like a feeling of helplessness, isn't it?
yes, 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 yes.
Mm, mm. Wow. What have you got anything else to share with us?
Uh, yes, from the online platform, I felt that it is good thing and a bad one on the other end. Good in the sense that you engage learners on one, and again, it prepares them that since the world is moving digital, you are now able to use and explore other platforms that you can engage in learning. You're also able to use the gadgets. You make discoveries that the phone can do quite a number of things. So from my end and from their end, that was a plus. Then apart from that, I also noticed that the online platform is also good because if you're engaging learners and maybe you record, if a student misses out, they would be able to get the audio and listen to it. However, I also felt like the online platform is not very good because, yes, we engage the learners on one, but if you teach a class physically, you are able to learn a child, monitor their behavior, unlike in the online platform where we only interact through the screen. But when we are in a physical class, I would monitor the behavior of our child and I would be able to correct that. Then besides that, the children also get to be disciplined because they know if I misbehave, the teacher will deal with me on the spot. But on the online platform, it is not so. Another negative thing that I also felt on the side of the online platform is that if you give an assignment, a student can cheat. You may give an assignment, maybe you're waiting for the student to do a quiz or an exam while you are there. They are very much able to cheat than in a physical class whereby it would be very much easy for you to monitor the engagement and a student may not cheat. Yes. So in a physical class, you are able to engage very many learners again, but in an online platform, it is kind of limited. Then the bit of in an online platform, you may not have the students joining the class at the same time, and they would have you didn't know whether it is the excuses they are giving is genuine, that they had a power hitch, or they did not join because of internet connectivity. You wouldn't know whether the excuses you're being given is genuine, unlike in a physical class whereby a student would not be able to miss a class because they would know if they miss a class, an explanation has to be given. If it is not given, you deal with them there on the spot. Then engaging learners physically again, it is very easy to bring parents on board and discuss issues that pertain their children. Unlike in the online platform whereby if you want to engage the parents, you have to do it again online. Yes.
Thank you for that. It's very, very true. Because, as much as there are a lot of positive on the online platform, because as I kept saying, in education, we need to move with the time because all other industry have moved. At the same time, we actually engaging on the online platform, there were a number of challenges. And you also just demonstrate to us, as much as you were present, the students were not present because they all did not have access to the device. And as a result of that, it meant that crucial teaching was missed because 55 of your students were not able to engage because they didn't have the resources. And that's quite sad because it's like, in terms of moving forward, some countries are able to move forward leaps and bounds, and others cannot move forward because of the lack of resources. So it's interesting because the online platform clearly demonstrate they have and they haven't. They have and they have not. And it actually also clearly demonstrate the inequality that exists on a global scale. Even in one country like America, the UK, you could clearly see that the inequality that exists in relationship to education and in relationship to resources and accessing resource. It's been very clear. That's one of the big things that COVID-19 have actually demonstrated to everybody, the inequality that exists within the sector itself. So it is quite an eye-opener and it's quite sad. Can you give 3 tips for someone who is now coming to access the online platform? Also in terms of your lessons, were you able to teach the lessons that you had in the physical classroom straight into the online classroom? How did you have to change things, if at all?
Well, some content that required practicability was not very easy. Yeah, because when you want to demonstrate something, it is not easy to do it on an online platform. Then the other thing is that when I want to give, there are certain assignments that was not very easy to engage the learners in, especially if I wanted them to do a practical that would be very easy for me to do during a physical class. So if one wants to engage in an online platform, you have to really prepare yourself and know the content that can fit in an online platform. The content also should not be very large, because if it's very huge, you will also find the learners engaging in other dubious activities under the tables, which you might not be able to see. You only see somebody maybe bending the head down or something happening, so you also get distracted. Yes, so they have to be very, very prepared and know the kind of content to present and in what quantity. And as they give assignments, you cannot be able to give very many assignments. You only give minimal that you can be able to get a feedback as soon as possible, mark and give the feedback.
Thank you. That is so very true. That seems to be a common thread that go through all the educators that I've been talking to, most of them, in terms of the quantity of work and having to adapt the lesson plan and the lessons to fit the online platform, because it's not easy fit. And as we do in the physical classroom, one size fits all. Online, one size doesn't fit all. So that's something we've actually, identified as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what 3 tips would you give an educator who have going online for the first time?
First, they have to be very conversant with the kind of platform that they want to engage, because there are very many platforms. We have Google Class, we have Zoom, so they have to be very conversant with that. Then the other thing, they should also be aware, or they should also ensure that they plan their lesson uh, in order to suit the class that they are teaching. Then apart from that, the other one is every time that they engage the learners, they should always give an assignment and give a feedback. They should also create a rapport with the student, because if you do not acknowledge the student, let's say for example, a student maybe joins on time, acknowledge the fact that they have joined on time, because when you do that, you are appreciating them. And when they get appreciated, that is a motivation on their side. And you will make them to learn and getting in class on time. So you must make sure that you create a very good relationship with a student. Your content is precise and it is within the period stipulated. Give assignment and ensure that the assignment that you give, you are able to give a feedback as soon as possible.
Thank you. I really particularly like when you actually say that when students get to the online platform on time, we need to appreciate them for that, which is very true. Because as much as we know they're supposed to, that is their duty to get there on time, But at the same time, the more we appreciate them turning up, the more we actually inspire them, and that would lead them to high motivation and the eagerness to come on the platform. That's very true and that's very good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How did you actually look in terms of self-care? What did you do in terms of your self-care and support the students in their self-care?
I also sometimes I could get stressed also.
You forgot
And I made sure
self-care.
that
Yes, well, this is something all educators tend to forget. We forget the importance of self-care because we're so wrapped up in the online platform. We forget that we need to take time for ourselves. We're busy trying to find different tools to teach and to make life easy for us, that the most important person in all of that is ourselves. We keep on forgetting. It is true. I cannot stress the importance of self-care enough. It could also be just taking time off going for a walk or just switching off completely.
yeah, so I made sure that I was emotionally stable. When I was down, I could engage someone to talk to, or maybe
Mm,
I find another activity to do so that I relax my mind.
mm, mm, mm,
Yes.
mm, mm. Yeah. Isn't we also need to also realize even students need some form of self-care because they're so busy looking after siblings and parents, etc., that when they come to us, self-care is neglected. That is something I realized late last year in terms of students and their own self-care. And that's something I feel that we need to be consciously aware of in terms of students. Something that I spoke about at the beginning of the program in relationship to the media and relationship to everybody, something that have been appearing in the media constantly is the role of educators. What is your opinion on when people are saying that educators do not want school to open because they don't want to go back and teach, they're lazy, they're coward, they're uncaring? What are your views on all of that?
Well, I feel that the people who say such things or give such comments are very unfair on the educators, because we are also human beings and nobody would want to risk their life. If the situation is that bad, you engage back in teaching and you get the disease, and you also put the children at risk. So I feel that the people who talk like that are people who are so much ill about teachers, and they forget that these very people were shaped by teachers. And sometimes, as you mentioned, also I also share the same sentiments. Very many people tend to feel like teachers do not do anything. Teachers are the teaching job is not noble, and many of them who have even passed through teachers and maybe are doctors or engineers, if they ask their children what they would want to be and they will say they want to be an educator, they say, what? Can't you find something better to do? So you feel like surely they find something better to do, and had it not been for the teaching, they wouldn't have been, they wouldn't have reached wherever they have reached. Everybody in this
Mm,
world passed through a teacher, whether from the preschool, from the primary section, high school, or even university. So, in my own opinion, I feel that people are just against teachers for whatever reason I cannot be able to comprehend. And I remember some time back, here in our country, people were making a lot of noise and they said that teachers should not be paid because they are being paid, yet they are not working. And they forget that teaching is equally an essential service. we should be likened to a doctor, because the kind of work that a teacher does is so huge that we cannot even compare to the salary that the teachers are given. So I feel that the people should change their mindset about teachers, and it is the highest time that they should encourage as many as they can to be able to be educators, because when you're an educator, besides doing just education, you also have other things that you are also engaging in, like counseling the children and doing other roles.
Exactly. Thank you very much for that. It is nice it's coming from another educator who see, and we all see the challenges and the struggle. And it's more and more and more is beginning to frustrate me because, as you rightly say, our job should be likened to all other profession, but yet still our job is the work we do is minimized and undermined, and we are constantly, belittled for what we do. And it's interesting that you've actually said that. As an educator, I've come from a family who've been educators. And I never wanted to be an educator, but God just put me in this role because He feels that that's the purpose He has for me. And I must say, I'm enjoying it. I've got a passion for it. I cannot see that I would have done anything else. However, when my daughter said to me once that she wanted to become an educator, she wanted to be a maths teacher. As an educator myself, always marking, I said to her, haven't you seen that you guys are always complaining that the dinner table, you cannot see the table, you're always seeing books. Why do you want to become an educator? I think at the time she probably was 12 or something. She burst into tears. She went and told her grandmother that I didn't want her to become a teacher. And I was trying to explain to her, not that I didn't want her to become a teacher, I'm just telling you that you need to really consider it, because you all are always mourning that on a Sunday we cannot have dinner as a family because the dinner table is always full with books. So it was interesting. In the end, she didn't become an educator. She ended up being, getting involved in accountants. But as educator yourself, when you know some of the challenges that you've been experiencing, that's the only reason why you're trying to say to your children, well, if that's something you're passionate about, go ahead and do it. But you must remember, having a life is very challenging because you may not have a life, because all you would be doing is marking these books constantly. And we are always, most educators always have books in the bags that they come home with and go back with. Come home with and go back with. So it is something that, as you become involved in education, the more you've been in education, the more you start finding strategy for not taking work home. As an educator, I have this is a principle and a policy of mine. I do not take work home to Mac. It must be crucial, it must be dire. I am marking everything at work because I need to start having a life when I get in my house. Because as educators, we need to get to the point where when we cannot do anymore, we need to say, okay, we cannot do anymore. The sad thing with educators are, the more you keep on saying yes, the more the educator leaders or your line manager, the more they pile on you. The more you say yes, the more they pile on you. The minute you start saying, no, I cannot do this right now, I need extra time, the more they start realizing that the task they've given you is unrealistic. So educators, I've got a course coming up in the next few weeks, which says that educators, you need to say no. You need to practice the mantra no. No, I'm not able to do it right now, but I could do it in the next few days. Educators need to be bold enough to start saying that. And the more you don't say that, the more you're going to get it. I've got a few colleagues who are principals and leaders, and sometimes we fall out because they're saying to me, but Debbie, the fact is, they say it's okay. The educators say it's okay. They say they could do it. And I'm saying they say they could do it because they're afraid of saying no. So it's about time leaders start seeing that educators are human beings and be realistic. So thank you very much for that. So the point I need to leave people with is, remember, as educators, we are not super nothing. You know, that's Judy, this is Debbie, we have family, we are partners, we are wives, we are whatever. For and foremost, we are human beings. Educator come after. So the unrealistic expectation that society and the world have of us is not real. This is attached to people who are superheroes. We're not superheroes, we're human beings. That's the reason why we are beginning to demonstrate our fears and anxiety. And the reason why people are not accepting it readily, because in their mindset, they had in their mind that educators are super personal and they're not human beings. So when we are saying we are scared and we are anxious and we are concerned for our health, the same way as this child parents is concerned about the health and everybody else, they cannot accept it. They find it unreal. Why should you? How could you say that you're afraid? Yes, because we're human beings first. Right, I am not mourning. It's not a mourn, it's a realization that people need to realize that we are human beings first. Please share and like the videos and the posts, because I am sure that a lot of you are getting some value from it. Because I also am aware that how some people saw educators before, they're now beginning to see educators from a different light. Whether or not they choose to embrace it, that's another story. But you are now beginning to realize that educators are not superheroes, they're human beings. And we need to start embracing the beauty of educators and what they do, because all of you out there have had the input of an educator. So you need to give us credit and respect us as you respect every other profession, because we're doing a job. And stop seeing it as mourning and who I think I am. I'm an educator who feel that you guys need to realize that our profession is as important as everybody else's out there. So as long as you guys start realizing that and acknowledging that, we'll be good. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on board and liking. Right, have you got anything else you want to say?
Yes. I can see you're wrapping up.
Yes.
And before you end the session, there's something that I would like to mention, and maybe encourage
Sure.
my fellow educators that if you find yourself in such a noble job, do it with a passion, no matter what people say. Close your mind from what the world says.
Yeah.
Do your work with a passion, because I have done it for the many years that I've been a teacher. And I have attracted even some of my students, and they tell me, teacher, I would like to be a teacher like you are. And many have come back to me when they are already done with high school, and they give me a feedback that I am an educator. I'm either ongoing in an institution, or I'm already one who has already graduated. So no matter what is said about us, we should stand firm. If you're really passionate about your job, you do it with a passion. Many that have fallen off from the education profession have done it because they did not have that passion. Some have done it because they were discouraged. But if you really are for it, you should not be discouraged. This is the reason why you find some people, when they are doing an introduction, one wouldn't want to mention that they are teachers. I am proud to be a teacher, and I even mentioned, like in Kenya, you find that many people uh, view the level of educationists who are on the higher level as to be much more important than the ones who are in the low grade. The preschool teachers or the primary school teachers are somehow disregarded But the high school teachers and maybe those who are teaching in the universities are given much more respect. So it is the way you take yourself, be proud of yourself, and stick to it, as you have mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with everything Judy said. There's nothing else I could add about it to what she said. Because as much as we find it challenging, I love teaching with a passion. I'm sure everybody could see that. And I'm on a mission to put us on this map because we need to and encourage new educators to be in the field and to see the beauty of it. As much as you guys are knocking us, you also need to remember that we've been in your life and we've actually been, we are instrumental in your life, or we have been. And without us, you guys would be nowhere. Right? So you guys need to remember that. And as Judy said, that some of us out there are passionate about what we do. And it is very clear that we need to do whatever we do with a passion. It's important. If you're not passionate about what you do, I'm afraid you need to step out and find something else that you're passionate about, because we all have a purpose and a passion in life. You just need to find yours. I found my calling. My calling is in education. And Judith have found her calling in education. Yes, we have. So if you're not passionate about what you do, I do urge you to find it, because when you do find it, it would no longer feel as a job. It's going to feel like life, because you're on a passion and you're on purpose. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, my guest, Judith. I thank you guys. Please share, like, and comment. Please share, like. It's important that you guys do that, because we need to put education where it belongs. It's at the top. We need to put it there. Thank you, everybody. Good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'll be back tomorrow with another educator. And remember, I'm back on Sunday with a new program where I'm discussing what people don't talk about, although they know it's there: mental health issue linking to educators and students. Even more so now that we're coming from this, we're going through this process of the COVID-19. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. Stay blessed and share the video and like the video. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.